Well, good morning everybody. Welcome back. It is a pretty gray and drizzly morning here in Newfoundland, but thank you all for returning. I've been thinking a lot this week about what are some of my favorite things, or what are the things that I couldn't live without. And the reason that I was thinking about it is after almost 6 months, my furniture finally arrived. And so having lived with just a chair, a bed, and a TV and some small electrical appliances, I came to be living in a house that was just empty and echoey. And so now that all of my things have arrived and the pictures are up and most things are put away, I was thinking, reflecting on what are the things that I really just couldn't live without. And so I thought, well, I'll share those with you. Maybe you've got a different list, but I think it's about being purposeful and considering what those things really are and what they mean and why you couldn't live without them. And the first thing I was thinking about that I couldn't live without since I've got my stuff is what you would know as a garden cart. And so, you know, one of those fold up beach carts with the big heavy duty wheels and can kind of go anywhere. I call it my Quilla cart, and Quilla is one of my dogs, and Quilla is 9 years old. She has some really big breathing problems. When we lived in New Zealand, she couldn't walk more than 2 or 3 blocks because of the heat, and so used to put her in the cart so she could go on longer walks with us. Our younger dog, Griffin, needs a little bit more exercise, and so the past several months have been pretty hard on Quilla in that she couldn't go on the longer walks with us. So she kind of got ripped off. And for me, having my Quilla cart and being able to take that when I go for a walk is great, because she can come along so far. And then when she starts to get a little winded, and she doesn't quite recognize it, but I can tell when she starts to get a little hard of breathing, that she can, I can pop her in there and she can still come on the longer walk, which is really great. And so that brings me to the next thing I thought, well, I really couldn't live without. And it comes back to having lived with for months with very, very little. And that's my 2 dogs. And given that, you know, my husband passed away a few months ago and I'm trying to rebuild, that's the whole point of this channel, that the 2 dogs have been brilliant. They have, they've kept me busy, and they also, I have to get out of bed in the morning because I got to feed them. They got to be walked. They have to be looked after. So that's probably been a really good thing for me. But probably more importantly is they're entertaining. They do dumbass things, and I find myself often just killing myself laughing at them because of what they're doing or running around, or, you know, Griffin he steals things and he doesn't hurt anything. He doesn't chew it. He will return it, but he is a thief, particularly shoes. So if someone comes over and takes their shoes off, often when they try to find their shoes when they go, Griffin has taken it to his little cave, which is behind a chair. So, you know, for me, the second thing is having my dogs and having that joy in my life, which is quite good. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I think that Ninja appliances are trying to take over the world. Everybody's worried about AI and other things. I think Ninja is on to taking over the world. I mean, they make ice cream makers, coffee makers, blenders. And I'll be honest with you, over the years, I like to make a good smoothie, like a protein smoothie. And I have killed many expensive blenders because they just can't cope with the ice or with the frozen fruit. But the Ninja blender, wow, love that baby. And so I use it pretty much daily, which is really great. And I've kind of classed the 2 appliances that I need to have. The second one is my KitchenAid. Doesn't need to be a KitchenAid because I have had a different brand, and as long as it's got the good motor and all the stuff that goes with it, I use that as well pretty much every day. So it's quite helpful. This one I really don't want to live without. It brings me joy. It's orange. My favorite color is orange, and if I can surround myself with orange, see, orange, it just brings me happiness. So for me, those are the 2 appliances that I use all the time and I absolutely love. And that kind of leads into having a freezer. I know lots of people, single people, will get some of those little small chest freezers. And I don't know about you, but I grew up in a big family, and my mom had like a freezer that was bigger than a coffin. And honestly, there were things that just went in there, and years later, they were still there. So I don't like those types of freezers where things go in and they stay there forever and you forget what's at the bottom. So when we moved here, we bought this house online, and there's always things that are made to look or sound a little better. The appliances, we thought we could save some money. We were wrong. The fridge, the doors and stuff were held up with sellotape. And so, but the freezer and everything else worked really great. What we did is we took it to the basement, and the freezer on the fridge is just the perfect size, and it's at the right height. So when I'm doing cooking and batch cooking, like I talked about last week, I can eat one meal, and then I can take the other one and put it in the basement, and then it's in there. And what it does is, between the fridge freezer upstairs and the fridge freezer downstairs, it makes sure that I'm not just cooking food for the sake of cooking food, putting it into a freezer never to be seen from again. I don't want that. So that works out really well for me. The other thing that brings me great joy, and I don't have a ton of them at the moment because I've been pretty new and I was waiting for my pots, but are greenery. So over here, I've got some rubber tree and a little parlor palm and another rubber tree and a Monstera, which is just brand new. I like my plants. I love having greenery around me. It makes me happy. It's why I garden outside. It brings me joy. So I'm hoping that over coming months, I will get more and more greenery, and it will make the house feel more like home. Do you like plants? They're good for you too, because they clean the air. Excuse me. Yeah, I just like them. So those are sort of I can't live without some plants. It makes a home feel like a home and not just sterile. And when you live alone, generally you don't make a ton of mess. You might have little areas. And so this way, it just makes the house feel lived in and more homey. The next thing for me, which might be a little controversial, are cameras. Because I live alone, because I tend to be a little more afraid of the dark, I live at the end of a street and there's no light pollution beyond my house. And remembering I moved from another part of the world to this part of the world, and while it's a really safe and wonderful town, there are still things that, break-ins and things still occur. So I invested in some cameras, and I've got them around the house. And when I go to sleep at night, I arm them. And that way, if something were happening, I would be aware of it. It just helps me sleep a little better. It might be a false economy, but it does make me feel better. And when I'm not home, they automatically go into armed mode. So if somebody were here or trying to get in, and I worry because my little dogs are here, and I get it. They're dogs. They're easier places to break into. Cameras make me feel safe. And so because they make me feel safe, there's something that I really don't want to live without. And I feel that very much that's a modern thing that, you have to have cameras now because you just don't know what you don't know. And the next one, which is a little more practical, I tend to be pretty practical, is a fire extinguisher. So we always had the old-fashioned ones, and we'd put it up in our pantry or inside of a closet and screw it in, and then it would be close to the stove, and you'd pull it off, and then there's 10,000 pieces of instructions on what you have to do. Well, I've never used a fire extinguisher. I don't know about you. It's not something I'm trained in, and it's supposed to be pretty easy, and I know you use a pot lid to smother it, but what if there was a little fire that I couldn't use a pot lid for? And I was thinking that previously my husband would have just handled it. He would have just got it, done it, and we would have been fine. But I wasn't sure. So I went online and I looked on YouTube and saw what other people were using. And there's these new ones that are like spray cans, like hairspray, or even the oil spray that you spray your pots with. And they're about that big. I've just ordered 2 of them, so I don't have them here. But having a fire extinguisher close by when I'm cooking, not that I'm often set the house on fire, but just in case something happens, then I've got a fire extinguisher to put it out. And I think that that's probably a pretty important thing to have. My next one that I missed immensely is I have a projection alarm clock. I've had a projection alarm clock for 20 years, and this is only my second one. The first one lasted for years. when I used to work in tech, and one of the guys that was in my team bought this projection alarm clock, gosh, many, many years ago. And he got a 2-for-1 deal or something. So he brought it in and he gave it to me. He said, it's going to change your life. And I was like, it's an alarm clock, dude. I don't see how an alarm clock is going to change my life. But it did. I loved it. What I loved about it is quite often in my industry before, I used to have to wake up and work through the night. And so I never knew what time it was, and should I be going back to sleep? Should I get up? All of those sorts of things. And with the projection alarm clock, I can barely open my eyes. I can see that it's 3:05 a.m. and I don't have to get up. I can go back to sleep. And it keeps the room dark, except for the little projection on the ceiling, which I thought was really cool. I think they've got these projection things now for kids where you can project cool, nightscapes or a seascape or something on your ceiling. If it came with an alarm clock, I probably would buy it because I quite like those. So for me, I can't live without my projection alarm clock. I love it. And it was one of the things that I unpacked when the furniture arrived. As I said before, I love to garden, and everybody, what's the one time of year? If you live in the Northern Hemisphere, Christmas time with all the twinkly lights, and it's dark and it's gray and it's kind of miserable and it's either snowing where you are or it's wet, depending on what part of the world you're in, is magical. There's just something about twinkly lights. And when I lived in Asia, they had them everywhere. Twinkly lights on every tree 24/7. When you live in the Southern Hemisphere, Christmas time is just barbecue. So twinkly lights are not as relevant because it's the height of summer. But I love twinkly lights. And so in my garden outside, I'm creating a fairy garden, and I've got a little pathway that's lit up, and I've lit up my front garden and my hedges. And surprisingly, in my town, lots of people do that. When I first got here, I was like, oh, maybe they just forgot to put their Christmas lights away. But they don't. This whole town seems to have like little twinkly lights out front. So there are lots of people who are with me on this whole twinkly light thing at night. And it's not just about Christmas, but it gives you that warm, glowy feeling when you see a house that's all lit up at night and it's got pretty lights. My neighbor has a beautiful tree. It's a huge evergreen, and she had twinkly lights on it. And when my husband first passed, people would come over quite a bit, and we were talking, and I told her that her tree brought me great joy. It would be the last thing I looked at night before I closed the curtains and went to bed. And her timer on it broke. And so for a long time, it was freezing cold, and she's quite a bit older. She would go out and she would plug the tree in for me. I didn't know that. And she did that for weeks and weeks until she got a new timer. So if you're watching, thank you very much. It brought me great joy, and I did appreciate the twinkly lights. One of the other things that I missed when my stuff was away, there was only so much luggage that we could bring. And it was the height of winter when we were leaving. So it was summer in New Zealand and winter here, which was March. So it was cold, and had to bring a lot of wintry type clothes, and I couldn't fit everything in. So, and I wasn't sure if I was going to get a job or not get a job. So I had some work clothes and some work shoes. One of the things that didn't make the cut was my running shoes. And they're pink and purple and rather loud and a bit garish, really. But they are so comfortable. And when I'm pulling my Quilla cart and I'm taking the dogs, I go for a walk on the boardwalk most days and around the neighborhood or up to the falls, and it's on gravel and uneven surfaces. I am so grateful to have my favorite running shoes. I know that they're, you're only supposed to use them for so long, and then they've only got so many miles in them or kilometers. But in this instance, I love them. So that's why I keep them. And so I guess those were my 10 things that make this space feel like a home, and they're things that I just couldn't live without. Your list is probably different to mine. Please put your comments in there. I'd love to know. Maybe I missed something. Maybe there's something in a box somewhere that I have completely missed. But these are the things that if everything else was taken away, which I lived with or without, made me quite happy. So yeah, if that's kind of the things I couldn't live without, at least at this point in my life, please leave in the comments, like I've asked before, please leave me your things that you couldn't live without. This channel's about starting over, and I'm a few months into this now, and I think I'm doing okay. But yeah, thanks. And I hope you have a fabulous week. I hope the weather clears up wherever you are, because I know some places it's too hot, so I hope you get rain. And we've had a lot of rain this summer, so I could use a little bit of sunshine. I don't need 40-degree heat, but a little bit of heat would be nice and a little bit of sun. Thanks. Have a great week. I'll see you next week.